All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good. Glad to hear it. Welcome to the Upper Gun Platform here at Fort Mackinac. My name is Niall. I'm joined up here by Andrew, and we're going to be your cannon crew for you here this afternoon. This is our Model 1841 6-pound field gun. This is the style of cannon that would have been up here at Fort Mackinac for soldiers in here in the 1880s. Now, if you're listening closely, you'll notice that by the 1880s, a Model 1841 cannon is just a little bit out of date. And it's actually very seriously obsolete at this point. There's been inventions of much more impressive cannons. This here fires a 6-pound solid iron cannonball up to a maximum range of only about a mile. So if you look out across the water, we could potentially hit a Round Island over there. That's about a mile away. However, at that range, the cannon is extremely inaccurate. This is still a smooth-bore, muzzle-loaded cannon, so that 6-pound ball has to roll in from the front side. I want to make it so that it rolls down nice and easy, so it's smaller than the diameter of the barrel. However, that means when it comes out the barrel, it's going to be rattling around. The last bounce is going to put some sort of a spin on it one way or the other, and at long range, it's impossible to predict where it's actually going to land. As you get closer in, it does get a little bit more accurate. Generally, inside the harbor, you'd be expected to be able to hit a ship-sized target about 1 in every 3 shots. And of course, getting more accurate the closer you get. And so that's pretty average for the 1840s, and pretty average for cannons going back from the 1840s all the way to the very beginning of Fort Mackinac's history. Cannons hadn't changed a whole lot in the last 100 years before that. However, as you go forward from the 1840s up to the 1880s, there are some big advancements in artillery, by the 1880s, many other forts are getting breech-loading rifled artillery that can deliver an explosive shell accurately to ranges of several miles. Fort Mackinac never gets any of these, mostly because we really didn't need them. By the 1880s, Fort Mackinac has been a peaceful fort for the last 70 years. The only time this fort ever sees combat is during the War of 1812. And there's a very brief engagement where British soldiers that actually occupied the fort at the time were firing on American ships down there in the harbor that were trying to recapture the fort for the United States. Well, if you are interested in more about that conflict, Andrew here is going to be leading a short walking tour about the War of 1812 right after this cannon firing. But by the 1880s, it has been 70 years of peace since Fort Mackinac at that point is actually acting as the headquarters of Mackinac Island National Park. And national parks very rarely need to fire cannons in their defense. Instead, we're using these guns only for ceremonial purposes. And for that, these old, 40-year-old field guns work just as well as any newer artillery would. So we're going to fire one of those salutes, just like the soldiers of the 1880s would have done. They would have fired every day. They fire first thing in the morning as they raise the flag, again every evening as they lower it, and more often for other sorts of special occasions and holidays. Now, a salute firing does not include a cannonball. I'm sorry if that's going to be a big disappointment for anyone. We're not actually going to be able to fire it out into the harbor there. All feel free to say, "Aw." I know, it's disappointing to me and Andrew too. But I'm sure all of you will be grateful knowing that we're not going to sink any of the ferries accidentally that you might want to be using to get home later on. So, with that, we're going to begin the salute firing first by cleaning out the cannon. So I'm going to take this leather patch here and use this to cover the touch hole here at the back of the cannon. This is called thumb stalling. So it's preventing any air from moving through the barrel, and this is kind of like covering the vent on a charcoal grill. It prevents any sparks inside from flaring up and stoking up to possibly prematurely ignite our gunpowder or flare up into Andrew's face as he's cleaning things. This makes it much safer to load and clean the cannon. So he's first going to use that gunner's worm to try and grab out anything solid, any solid debris that might be down in there in the barrel. This might be fragments of the wrapping from our last cannon charge, which clog up the cannon, or still be carrying a spark, since back in the 80s, the wrapping would be a cloth bag, which could still be smoldering down there for some time. Now, after any debris is removed, we follow that up with a wet swab, just to ensure that any spark or ember that might have been down there is extinguished, not only by introducing moisture, but also by forcing out all of the air, so there's no oxygen for any spark to burn. Now it's time for us to load our powder charge. We're going to be firing about 3 ounces today, and Andrew will seat that charge of gunpowder all the way down to the back of the barrel. So that package of powder will be sitting directly under the touch hole right where my thumb is covering. And we can now use that touch hole to access the gunpowder to set it off for our salute charge. And now we're going to roll the gun forward. And Andrew will step around to prime the cannon. He'll take out a spike which he'll use to pierce open the wrapper around the charge, and that will expose the gunpowder into a device called a friction primer. One of these is going to sit right down in the touch hole. All this really is a little brass tube filled with gunpowder, topped with what is essentially a match head attached to a pin. And when that pin gets pulled, it's like striking a match, which ignites the powder in the tube, and that flares down through the touch hole into the charge waiting just below. And these are invented in the 1840s, so they're historically accurate to the style of cannon that we've got here. And with that, we are just about ready to go. So this would be a great time for everyone to cover your ears. This will be just a bit loud. And with that, the commands are ready, fire! So there's a cannon salute to welcome you all to Fort Mackinac today. Get that just a moment. If anyone does have any other further questions, please feel free to stick around. I'll be up here for just a few minutes longer. Andrew here, though, is going to be leading a short walking tour talking about the War of 1812 here at Fort Mackinac. That's going to be starting in just a minute right down the stairs at the corner of the parade ground. Feel free to follow him on down there. But thank you for joining us, and I hope you're enjoying your visit to Fort Mackinac here today.